If you thought that Sakon and Ukon of the Sound 4 were the only curse mark twins, wait till you check out this episode of Boruto. Greetings, my ninja pals! It's time to take a look at another episode of Boruto, Naruto Next Generation, a continuation of the very surprising and exciting Jugo arc. I really liked this episode, at least the second half of the episode. The first half of the episode was basically Boruto and his gang hanging out with Jugo as they save geese. Doesn't that sound like fun? I could sit here and harp and bitch and moan about the first half of the episode all day long, but it ultimately does serve a purpose to show that while Jugo is a very unstable and violent person, he has a strong connection with nature, something that's always been very important to the character, and we get to see that that nature is starting to extend to actually interacting with human people like Boruto and his friends, realizing that he simply can't do all of this stuff on his own. That and the fact that, well, he needs these kids around in order to get his medication every once in a while. Every 3 hours, boom, he gets another injection and everything's gonna be just fine. The problem is, as he continues to use these injections, eventually they're going to start losing their potency and eventually he'll just transform into a giant rampaging monster yet again. But like I said, most of the first half of the episode is mostly just Boruto and his friends hanging out with a bunch of geese. In particular, this one white one, which is basically just a domesticated one from the villages, which makes quick friends with Jugo and Boruto. But ultimately, it's stuff that you'll completely forget about, especially because in the second half of the episode, suddenly they give us another action scene which just explodes off the screen with some really sexy looking animation. I tell ya, they're doing some pretty cool stuff with Jugo in this arc, and the very short scene of him battling against Boruto and his friends is incredibly well animated and has some amazing artwork attached to it. I hope to see more of this in the continuation of this arc, and it's got me only more pumped up to see what's next. But basically, yeah, Jugo ends up losing control, going into the village and running a fucking muck and throwing a shit fit, destroying buildings and even attacking a family, before suddenly he's hit with a couple of very convenient poison darts which put him right to sleep. And they were shot by that weird organization from the Land of Rivers, which is trying to somehow weaponize the power of the curse mark. It is officially confirmed that they are connected to those two twins which went after Team 15, as we do get to see them in this episode. And if you wanted to learn a little bit more about what they did when they battled them, well, guess what? There's a flashback of that in this episode, and it's some pretty cool stuff, aside from the fact that we mostly get to see the entire team get their ass handed to them. What is really interesting about it, however, is that we actually do get to see Sumire and the Nue battle against them, and they actually use the power of those curse mark collars to transform into these monstrous curse mark versions of themselves, which are very similar to some of the transformations that we've actually seen earlier on in the series. It definitely reminds me of the Sound 4 from the original part of Naruto, not to mention that these two characters, this brother and sister, remind me a lot of Sakon and Ukon from the Sound 4, but they each have their very own individual transformations, where the older brother seems to look a little bit more like Jugo when he transforms with his giant bulky arms and a massive spike coming out of his head, but it's the sister who has a completely weird and freakish transformation, unlike any other curse mark form that we've actually seen from the series, which truly makes her look utterly terrifying. While they are able to take out Wasabi and Namida, Sumire does actually manage to escape with the Nue, so I'm glad that she's going to be a little bit more important in this arc, as, let's face it, she's definitely one of the more interesting anime-only characters that they've introduced in the series. The fact that she's had her own arc, the fact that she's had the most development, I can't wait to see more of her and the Nue in action, and that's probably going to come to fruition in the next episode. People looking for the preview for the next one, you're going to get excited. It looks like Jugo and Karin are going to be returning as well, so that they can back up their good buddy Jugo. But what's going to happen to Jugo now that he's been knocked out by some tranquilizer darts? Well, it looks like he's just going to be taken away by this organization, and there's nothing that Boruto and his friends can do about it. In fact, the entire village wants their ninja asses out of town. They are not satisfied with the fact that they keep bringing destruction to them, and they didn't even warn them about the fact that Jugo himself can actually transform into a raging monster. So they just get really pissed off and they decide, get the hell out of town, we don't care. So Sokka, on the other hand, the bird expert looks like he's going to be staying behind, and I think this is actually kind of interesting. I have a weird theory that maybe Tosaka is actually secretly a bad guy. It's kind of hard to tell. If he is actually a bad guy at the end of the day, man, he's doing a pretty good job of actually hiding it, as for the most part he is kind of just a coward who's obsessed with birds. But maybe he actually is working along with this Land of Rivers organization, or maybe he's just a doofus. So what's the rundown on this episode of Boruto, Naruto Next Generations? While I wasn't all that impressed with the first half of the episode, the second half I thought was significantly more interesting. The first half served a purpose again of showing the building relationship between Boruto and Jugo, how there is a strong budding respect for both of these characters, where initially Jugo was very standoffish with these characters, but when he sees how much that Boruto legitimately cares about not just helping him, but helping the wildlife, it starts to allow him to open up and interact with that character in a more interesting way, and I would dare say this is probably the most human that we've ever seen the character of Jugo, and in that sense, it is kind of interesting. But for the most part, it's just watching a bunch of little assholes play with some geese. Nothing all that crazy. The second half of the episode is, of course, where things get really interesting, when we get that great animated scene of watching Jugo go on a rampage. There's those little brilliant moments where the episode just explodes with really great animation. It's always really jarring, though, when they go back to the regular stuff, but for the most part, as someone who really likes really well-animated action anime, it's something that I really liked seeing. I even love that little flashback sequence of watching the twin villains go up against Team 15. I was really hoping, however, that Namida was actually going to end up utilizing her brand new powers, and she almost did it for a second. She was getting ready to blast the fuck out of these guys and just send them flying like fucking Team Rocket. It would have been so satisfying to see that happen, but she ends up getting tackled and smacked directly into a rock. And Wasabi, I still think they haven't really lived up to the hype of her character, the fact that she has the unique ability to transform into a chakra cat. I just want to see more of that, and every single time she transforms, all she really ends up doing is just sort of lightly scratching people. I really want to see more development for her character because, again, visually, I think her abilities look really awesome, but it's Sumire who it looks like she's going to, of course, end up being more important, and I can't wait to see more of her interactions with Nue, and how they're going to go up against Karin and Jugo, and how this is all going to end up getting involved. I'm really interested to see where this arc is ultimately going to be heading and what they're planning on doing with this curse mark. My theory, again, is, like I said, they're just planning on weaponizing it in some form, the way they're using it with the twins, how they're creating these collars which allow them to sort of control these abilities and keep them in check. And Jugo's probably going to be the perfect candidate in order to mass produce these type of weapons, or they're trying to extract something else very secretively from his body. All I know is I'm excited about this arc still. The first half was really slow, I have to admit, but I still found myself really enjoying this episode quite a bit, which is why I'm going to give it a solid 4 out of 5. That's right, check it out, Boruto fans. You heard my thoughts about this episode. I want to hear yours. Tell me all of them in the comment section below. What did you think of the transformation of the evil twin characters in their battle against Team 15? Do you want to see more of Jugo going on a big, monstrous rampage? Do you have any theories as to where this arc is going and what ultimately it's going to connect to? Let's just have a discussion about it in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down, baby.